Okay, alright, so, no, that's still too, let's go a little higher than that, a little softer, a little high, okay, can I talk okay, at around 250 hertz, I want to focus on around 250 hertz, but I want to focus on a little closer to 250 hertz, I want to focus, okay, there we go, now we're, alright, so today I don't know, I had a little fun today. A friend did did my makeup, and that was the highlight of my day, I guess. Um, but I mean, like I couldn't stop smiling when I looked in the mirror. I couldn't stop smiling when I looked in the mirror, and but I just enjoyed the look that the feminine look that I accomplished, and that was great. Um, but uh, what is it? Oh yeah, after I took off the makeup, I was kind of sad because it's just it didn't. I mean, I felt like I felt I felt like I'd remasculinized again or something like that. So I don't know. It was it was. I guess you could call that euphoria or whatever. It's not. A lot of people describe gender euphoria. A lot of people describe gender euphoria as some sort of super passionate or strong emotion, but um, this is a lot more subtle for me. But it's still there. It's not. And I mean, maybe it's just my emotions are still pretty. I want to say maybe my emotions are still pretty. I don't know, dulled or something like that. I don't know. At any rate, here we go. Um, A little gravel road sloped sleepily down our scrubby front lawn and wandered off toward a small private beach several hundred yards to the right. The view was almost perfect, for we were very isolated. The hill the captain had built his house on was the only solid land in the midst of a velvety green salt marsh on which no houses could be built. Unfortunately, had added Ted's family had added another house to the top of the hill to increase the income from their property. A squat cinder block cube painted a revolting shade of pink, only 10 yards to our right. I kept out of sight behind one of the pillars of our porch and watched a woman and two men emerge Volkswagen converted from the purple from the purple Volkswagen convertible parked between the houses. God, I thought we'd be in that brutal traffic all night, the woman cried, flinging her long arms above her head in an impatient, almost violent gesture. Then, 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 then she saw Ted, and her manner suddenly became demure. Ted, you must be Ted. Thank you so much for waiting for us, she said, taking his hand. The voyage took much longer than we thought it would. She was a little shorter than Ted, with a thick mane of black hair. She wore a halter top and denim cutoffs, an outfit that showed her spectacular figure to great advantage. Ted, who had been so talkative a moment before, now seemed tongue-tied as he stared at her. Cars were expiring all around us, the woman went on. If that had happened to ours, I think I might have just left it there and hitchhiked. She smiled sweetly up at Ted. You probably wouldn't have had much trouble getting a ride, Ted said. Nice domain you got here, Ted, said the man with the brown mustache. A prime piece of domain, no doubt about it, prime. Well, we do try to take good care of it, Ted said, sounding pleased with himself. Our little lodgement does seem to have a better view, just like you told us, said the other man who had a blond beard, even though it's not quite as picturesque as the captain's house. The captain, how do you know the story about the captain? Ted demanded, as though the house's story were his own personal property. I didn't say about it over the phone. I didn't say anything about it over the phone. Oh, no, no one told us any kind of story about it. The women quickly explained with a glance at the blond man who pressed his lips together. We don't know any story. That's just what the agent called the captain's house, whatever that means. She turned toward her house, and I squeezed back behind the pillar. But it did make us a trifle curious, and you seem like such an accommodating person, Ted. She smiled at him again, and her voice took on a husky, cajoling quality. And I was just wondering, if those people didn't arrive yet, do you think you could get us around inside? We'd be so engrossed. I'm sure you've taken wonderful care of it. They've been here for a week, Ted said. Much as I'd enjoy showing it, I don't think they want company now, but there are some things I should tell you about your place. His voice faded as he moved with them toward the front door of their house. I went quietly back inside. The two windows in our dark pine-paneled dining room faced directly toward the cement patio in front of the center block cottage. Mom and Dad sat at the ends of the table, and I sat on the side, opposite the windows. We all had a perfect view when the neighbors emerged in their swimsuits with a tray of bottles and glasses. Mom was the Mom was the first to look away from them. Why, Barney, you haven't even touched your burger, she said. I quietly took a bite, but I also kept watching. It wasn't just that all three of the neighbors had the bodies of the athletes. There was also a casual, animal grace to their movements that attracted the eye simply because it was so unusual. I knew they were just three people, but somehow I felt as though I were watching three lions. That's a really an adorable bikini she's wearing, don't you think? Don't you think? Oh my God, there's these little twinges of whatever. There's these little artifacts of my voice that I'm trying to focus on, and it's just evidence that I'm pushing a little too much power with this frequency. But at any rate, that's really an adorable bikini she's wearing, don't you think? Mom said. Only the poor dear should know better than to show herself in something that skimpy at her age. She doesn't have the figure. She doesn't have the figure for it anymore. I choked on a sip of milk, and Dad gave Mom a puzzled glance. The woman's figure was as flawless as any movie star's. Her finger looks all right to me, Dad said, making a gross understatement. It's especially unflattering on her in comparison to those two striking young men, Mom said, as though she hadn't heard him. They could be models or something. Models, Dad said. Those ordinary-looking guys? They're a little on the puny side, if you ask me. I had to laugh. Mom and Dad, who were middle-aged and out of shape, were trying to rationalize their way out of being compared unfavorably to these perfect physical specimens. It seemed rather childish. I wonder what it is they see in her, Mom said. Maybe she has the money. Yeah, that would explain it. That idea seemed to satisfy her. Maybe they just like her for herself. I said, maybe they're all just good friends. Well, they're certainly having a good time. Give me a moment. Well, they're certainly having a good time, Mom said, her eyes resting on... Well, they're certainly having a good time, Mom said, her eyes resting on her... Well, they're certainly having a good time, Mom said, her eyes resting on the neighbors again. Her eyes resting on the neighbors again. I wondered vaguely why she was paying so much attention to them. She usually made a point of ignoring other vacationers unless they had connections with her own set, but now she smiled wistfully at them. It's nice seeing people enjoy themselves so much, isn't it? She asked. The neighbors had arranged lawn chairs in a row facing the bay. They seemed fascinated by the sky and the water, pointing and gesturing, talking animatedly, sipping their drinks, frequently laughing. Their skin had a purplish cast in the fading light. I began to wonder, as their shapes grew indistinct, why they kept looking more and more often toward our house. Were they talking about us? It was several hours later. Mom and Dad were watching television, and I was rereading The Puppet Masters when there was a knock on the front door. Maybe that's the people from next door, Mom said. The cottage next door was the only other house on this stretch of road. Who else? Dad said, pushing himself out of his chair. I got up too, but he beat me to the door. The woman from next door was wearing a sleeveless lavender cotton dress, and her hair was pinned up into a bun, exposing her long, slender neck. Now, face to face, she seemed much taller than she had at a distance, several inches taller than me. A smile hovered around the edges of her wide mouth, and in the dim porch light her eyes seemed as deep a shade of lavender as her dress. "Hello, I'm from next door, and I'm sorry to bother you like this," she said. I couldn't place her accent. "I feel terribly gênant. It's just what they're... It's just that we're trying to light a fire, and they don't seem to have provided us with any... What's the word? Oh, yes. Tinder. Tinder. Tinder." Wow, that frequency sweep really went like back and forth, didn't it? Tinder. Okay, that was better. Tinder. Anyways, we were wondering if you might have any surplus, which we could burn just for tonight. We'll be sure to repay you in full tomorrow. She didn't meet her eyes as she spoke, but peered around us as if she were trying to see us as much as possible of the interior of her house. "We have lots," Dad said. As he started for the fireplace, she stepped quickly into the house, almost bumping into me in her haste to get a good look at the living room. "Good evening," Mom said, standing up and nodding pleasantly at the woman. "Barney, why don't you be a gentleman and carry the kindling over for her? Maybe they need some help settling in." "Sure," I said, wondering what the matter was with Mom. Usually she would have been a little cold to a stranger barging in on us like this. Now she was actually sending me over to fraternize with the neighbors. "Oh, thank you. And you wouldn't happen to have an extra one of those tide charts by chance, would you?" "Oh, thank you. And you wouldn't happen to have an extra one of those tide charts by chance, would you?" the young woman asked, her gaze wandering toward the stairway. "Yes, I'll get it," I said, forgetting to be shy. She was looking at me now, and my eyes slid away from her. "That would be so gentle of you," she said warmly. I got the tide chart, filled my arms with prickly kindling, and pushed open the screen door. I waited while she remained inside for a long moment, then followed as she came striding out. In the darkness, the light from the cottage's pure picture window made a pale oblong on the sloping lawn. A crescent moon hung over the invisible black. A crescent moon hung over the invisible black water. We're in fortune," the woman announced, holding open the screen door of the cot. "Oh my God, we're in fortune," the woman announced, holding open the screen door of the cottage as I stepped cautiously inside. Compared to the heavily curtained, overstuffed over overstuffed interior of the interior of interior interior of interior of the captain's house. The main room of the cottage seemed empty and bleak. Bare white walls, gray linoleum floor, unmatching plastic furni- furniture with two metal floor lamps providing the harsh illumination. The men sat drinking wine at a wooden table in the center of the room. The debris of a meal had been pushed aside and some kind of game seemed to be in progress. Seemed to be in progress. A, a, a board a board had been set up on the table with movable pieces and colored cards and envelopes. A succulent, spicy smell lingered. A board had been set up on the table with movable pieces and colored cards and envelopes. A succulent, spicy smell lingered. That's a bonanza, said the man with the brown mustache, getting up to accept the kindling. I was aware as he came toward me of how large and powerfully built he was. Thanks extremely, he said, and lifted a big load of kindling from my arms as though it were a match of sticks. Hi, said the man with the blond beard. Hi, said the man with the blond beard, who was slender than the other, but weary. Did you get inside? He asked the woman. Then he said, oops, and gulped down some wine. Okay, I'm going to stop here. We're at roughly 15 minutes um, of reading and, working through everything. There's these like moments of raspiness as I'm hitting these throughout this that I was trying to avoid, and so I was trying to rework the muscle memory for saying that particular word. That's why I kept repeating things and so on and so forth. At any rate, I'm gonna stop here. Thanks.